All right, welcome in everybody. Patriots post-game live after a huge win over the Cleveland Browns, a blowout. I thought this was going to be one of the biggest games of the season. I thought it was going to be competitive. The Browns, have been playing well over the last few weeks. They got a big win over the Bengals. They have a hard-fought game with the Steelers, which is a little back and forth. Maybe they should have won that game, but the Browns, that in that division especially had been, very good this year, and they're even better than their record because that division is very, very tough. I mean, everybody in that division going into this weekend was over 500. The Browns, of course, haven't played the Steelers, a couple weeks ago, and it was really, I mean, that whole division's up for grabs. It's crazy. I've never seen four teams in one division that are all so good, but that's the way it's worked out this season, and it felt like the Patriots were in for a real fight and against a team that maybe they were without Nick Chubb, but the strength of that running game is the offensive line. And those guys were healthy and they just got paid. So it felt like even with, Johnson back there, as opposed to, those other guys like Chubb or Kareem Hunt, felt like the Browns were still going to be able to run the ball. And the Browns did run the ball well for the most part. It just didn't translate to points, which we'll get to in a second because their passing game was so ineffective. And I don't know if Baker Mayfield was if he was hobbled. I mean, I know he's dealing with that non-throwing shoulder injury, but he looked worse than he had all season in this game. I don't know if he was being hammered by something else. I knew he left the game. There's all that stuff with Baker Mayfield to sort out. But, and, you heard all the talk before the game about Baker Mayfield versus Mac Jones, who would you rather have? And Mac Jones looks like the better quarterback today, by far. Mac Jones was fantastic. But as far as the game itself goes, not the type of game you should have expected at all. And especially against the Browns defense. I mean, the Browns had a top 10 passing defense. Their run defense wasn't too bad either. They have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney coming off the edge. Like, there's so much talent all across the board there. And the fact that the Patriots were just able to, just go through their defense like it was nothing is incredible and an incredible sign for things to come. Like, this is no small thing. 45 points against the Browns. We're talking about a different level of football. Like, if you want to look at the Patriots 50-plus point outing against the Jets and say it's the Jets, I almost understood that a little bit. Even still, I was thinking, yes, it's the Jets, but, not everybody drops 50 against the Jets every week. To do it against this team, to do it against this defense in Cleveland, that's special. That is very, very special, especially because you have to consider what Cleveland has been doing the last few weeks. I mean, they held the Bengals offense, which was great, to 16, held the Steelers to 15, held the Broncos to 14. Like, they had been doing things, and they'd been playing really, really well. And Patriots just exploded today. The most points the Browns have given up, or I guess they give up the 47 to the Chargers, but the second most points they give up. So it's been kind of inconsistent, but they started to get into a rhythm. The Cardinals kind of have put up a big number on them as well, but there's a lot of talent there. And the fact that the Patriots put up 45 and the Browns held the Browns to 7, like, that's really, really special. And you look at something we talked about quite a bit, I think last week, was point differential in the NFL and the teams that rank near the top as far as that goes. The Patriots are, after today too, that's another 38 that you can put on the board. I think they're going to be second in the NFL, still just behind the Bills. The Bills were about 19 points ahead of them. So unless they kind of slipped up against the Jets, let's see, they would have had to beat the Jets by less than 19. And right now they're up 35. So it doesn't look like they're going to catch the Bills. The Bills are still going to be tops in point differential. But I think the Patriots, after today, if I'm doing the math right, and they were actually, well, the Cardinals are going to be another team to monitor too, because the Cardinals are plus 122. They actually lead the league. But you're talking the Patriots, the Bills, and the Cardinals, and that's it in terms of point differential. So that's pretty amazing. And now the Patriots climb up to 6-4 on the season. Just close to the Bills. They'll still be a half game behind the Bills. Just for anyone wanting to throw that out there, half game behind the Buccaneers too, just for the people that are still interested in those storylines. But an incredible game all around on both ends. People had questions about Patriots defense being inconsistent, the secondary needing help, Jalen Mills being out there, all this stuff. They had questions about the offense being inconsistent, whether it was Mac Jones, whether it was the running game with all the injuries they had there, whatever. People had questions everywhere possible about this team. And I'm not going to go as far as to say they answered all of them today, but they certainly quieted some of those people and quieted some of those that thought this team had some real holes, because they couldn't have possibly played a better game on both sides of the ball. It was really incredible. And this was with, by the way, I mean, you may have seen this stat. They threw it up during the broadcast. I think it was the 3 90-plus yard drives. The first time Bill Belichick had done that at any point in his entire career, with the Patriots at least. Bill Belichick had never had 3 drives of 90-plus yards on offense. And to do that today is just another storyline. Like, I say dominating on both sides of the ball. Cleveland had a good day punting. They pinned the Patriots back. It didn't matter. Like, it's just crazy that it seems like, that's something that went their way, and the Cleveland's way, and it didn't play any sort of big role in the game. So credit to the Patriots for just a kind of outing that you would dream of. I mean, you couldn't. I can't imagine that things could have gone better. And now, short turnaround, because they do have the Falcons on Thursday. So luckily, you didn't have to grind for this one. You didn't have to go into overtime. Mac Jones got to sit on the bench a little bit. So that's good. That's good news. You should be well rested for that Atlanta game. And Atlanta didn't look too good today. Atlanta got blown out on their own. So even though this was a blowout in Cleveland, it's easy to look at this game and say, well, Cleveland's not even on your level. Cleveland's still going to be fighting for a playoff spot this year. They are 5-5 right now after this loss, and you needed this win in case you ever get into a tiebreaker with Cleveland or any of the other teams that you might play in the AFC for common opponents, stuff like that. So you beat Cleveland, you beat the Chargers. Those are 2 teams, and the Chargers, who knows, they could win the division. But if they don't, those are 2 teams you could be competing with for wildcard spots. Maybe you don't even have to get a wildcard spot. Maybe you can win the division, but let's just stick with the wildcard spot idea for now. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. If that's the case, the Patriots are in prime position now. Prime position. Because any games that they have had, and they played this year against teams that they could potentially be in contention with for those spots, they've won. I mean, these were the 2, the Chargers and the Browns. The Titans, I think the Titans are definitely going to win the South, so I'm not worried about that game coming up. And really, that's it. Unless you want to say the Colts. Maybe the Colts, that could be another game that looms large if the Colts are going to make a push for a wild card spot. But other than that, that's it. And I think people should be feeling pretty confident about that matchup with the Colts right now. Colts have been a little consistent. They have a matchup going up against the Jaguars right now where things have been pretty back and forth, and they've had trouble even competing with the Jaguars today. Jaguars got pretty close, and it looks like they're going to end up losing. The Jaguars down 6, so who knows? That game's that final 2 minutes, so we'll see if the Jaguars end up coming back. But an incredible game all around from a lot of people. It's Gear. I see you saying, what a win. So much to be excited about. Thomas saying, nice game. It's Gear saying, interested to see how Jonnu plays over the next few weeks. And, what's amazing really right now is that it feels like the Patriots have found a way to be fantastic on offense without Jonnu Smith. Like I thought if they were going to be a great offensive team, they needed Jonnu Smith to play a huge role. They don't. The fact is they don't need Jonnu Smith right now. If Jonnu Smith came along and was effective, that would be a luxury. They have no need for him. Hunter Henry's been good enough. Hunter Henry leads the league in touchdowns by a tight end. Like Hunter Henry's been fantastic, and he doesn't have a ton of yards to show for it, a ton of catches, but perfect in the red zone. That's exactly what they need. That's exactly what they were missing last year. Red zone threat. He's been excellent for it. And another reason why the Jonnu failed signing, if you want to say right now, hasn't come back to bite them is because the Kendrick Bourne signing was a home run. He was the guy out of these, 4 guys they brought in, Henry, Aguilar, Jonnu Smith, and Bourne. Of those 4, he was the least paid, and he's been the second most effective, or you could even say the most effective if you want to. I mean, he's been that good, and he was that good today, over 100, almost 150 yards. I mean, he was amazing. He was fantastic out there. So he played a huge role for them. A couple other guys that we should probably mention. Mac Jones, his first career 3-touchdown game, and you want to talk about him getting into a rhythm. I mean, he didn't have the highest completion percentage, certainly, or actually he did. Sorry, excuse me, I misspoke there. 19 to 23, so he didn't pass a lot, I think is what I meant to say. Did not a lot of passing plays. They ran certainly more than they passed today. I think they had over let's see, 34 carries, just about 34 carries today. So some of those might have been kneels downs with Brian Hoyer, so about 32 carries overall. They passed the ball about 26 times, and they got to sit Mac Jones down at the end of the day. So 19 of 24, over 80% completion. You're talking 83, 84% completion. So he was fantastic. 199 yards. So again, low on the yards, but 3 touchdowns, no picks. You'll take that. And the way they were able to run the ball, it's just everything. Like nothing didn't work for them except like the fact that the Browns got some good punts, and even that didn't matter. So it's incredible that they had a game like this against this team. If they had done this against the Jets, if they do this against the Jaguars later in the season, if this was the game they put together against the Texans, it would be easy to dismiss it. It would be easy for other people to dismiss it. You can't dismiss this. This is a statement. This is a real statement victory. Like this, people should be scared of the Patriots again. 45-7 over a playoff team from last season, over a team competing for the playoffs this year. Like a team with that kind of an offensive line, playmakers on defense across the board. Mention Garrett, Clowney, Denzel Ward, whoever. Like it didn't matter today. You could have come into this game theoretically arguing the Browns were the more talented team, and the Patriots played so well that you come out of it and it doesn't even feel like a question. Like, no, because we could say, if the Patriots won this game, it wouldn't be about talent. It would be about coaching, and you'd get the edge then. You'd have home field advantage. A couple things probably went your way. No, the Patriots look downright more talented than the Browns. A team flushed with talent. They look like they were just better across the board. Ramondre Stevenson was better than the Browns' rushing defense. Kendrick Bourne was better than their coverage. Mac Jones was better than their coverage. Juwan Bentley made some big plays. He got in the backfield. Their defense overall was really special. I mean, and the Browns wide receivers, an issue for the team 100%. And that's part of the reason they couldn't move the ball. Passing for the game for them was brutal. I mean, overall, they finished with Baker Mayfield, 11 of 21, 73 yards, the touchdown, the pick to Kyle Duggar, who played great. I know It's Gear mentioned him too. And Case Keenum came in a little better, 8 of 12, 81 yards. But they couldn't move it. And that's a big problem for their team when, 7 of those receptions came to Dearness Johnson on, just kind of dump offs at, outlet passes. So nothing really special cooking up there. 4 of them came to Austin Hooper, 2 came to Harrison Bryant, and 1 came to David Njoku. So their receivers today had 5 catches, and Jarvis Landry had 4 of them. Like, maybe they needed Odell more than they thought. And I know Odell forced his way out. Maybe they would have liked to keep him. I don't know. But Higgins and Schwartz, a lot of drops from those guys. They weren't good. And it wasn't, their talent on that end is almost, I would argue, I mean, besides Jarvis Landry, it might be worse than what the Patriots had last year. Like that is a sorry group of receivers. And it's kind of sad, especially for a team with this much talent in other places. Like you can't have a receiver room like that. And after they got rid of Odell, it was pretty clear they're going to have to go into the draft and free agency next year and pick up receivers. But for now, maybe they can survive with their running game, use their tight ends in certain ways. Maybe it'll be okay. Wasn't that way today. The Browns were really, really brutal. The other player for the Patriots, more than worth mentioning, Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, and this was a guy that when Harris went down, he started to show flashes. He showed a lot of flashes in the preseason, and he thought this guy can be really special. 20 carries, 99 yards. Should have been over 100, but he got stuffed on that last carry. 20 carries, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5.0 yards a carry. Also had Pitchipton, how many yards receiving? 15 yards receiving on top of that. Fantastic game from him. And he just add him to the list of Patriots rookies that are making a big impact. And I know It's Gear. You went back and forth on this on Twitter a little bit. You got Mac Jones, Christian Barmore, Ramondre Stevenson. So the Bill Belichick narrative that he can't draft was getting talked about a lot, and it was starting to gain some steam. And then all of a sudden, what happens? 3 picks nailed like this. And hey, obviously we heard the reports that Belichick was deferring more power in the draft room this year and yada, yada, yada. So maybe that's true. So maybe we have to give some credit elsewhere. But hey, he's the man on top. He's the one that made that decision, and he was part of it at least. So the fact that he was willing to delegate, that worked out for the Patriots. At the end of the day, if you want to say this is Bill Belichick's draft record, like add this to the list. You can't take that off. He's the head coach. He's the GM. This is part of his draft record, and they hit on these picks, all of them. Beautiful. Three great players now. And Ramondre Stevenson has cemented himself into that category with these last two performances. Fantastic today. And I honestly think when Damian Harris comes back, just keep riding with Ramondre Stevenson. I don't think there's any reason to go away from Stevenson at this point. I mean, he's been electric. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe you can talk about it a little bit in the comments. I know Damian Harris has had some good games too, and he's been a force certainly on the goal line at times, but he's not as good as Ramondre Stevenson. I'm sorry, he's just not. Damian Harris is a pretty good back, pretty good power back. Has some speed. Certainly quality. You can definitely use him, but he is not what Ramondre Stevenson is. You're talking about a different level of player. And I would stick with Ramondre Stevenson as your starting back, as your go-to back, as your goal line back for the rest of the year. He's really good. I think he's a better pass catcher than Harris. I think he's stronger than Harris. I think he's a little faster too, although their speed isn't that much different. I mean, it's just Damian Harris, in theory, is your power back. He should be able to break more tackles. Stevenson actually runs through guys. People can't tackle this guy. It's amazing. And Kendrick Bourne, just touch on him one more time. I know he already did. His final stat line, 4 catches, 98 yards, a touchdown. Not to mention what he did rushing, 3 rushes for 43 yards. I mean, he's a weapon. He's a weapon. And I said he's quietly becoming one of the best receivers in the league, and I don't think that's a stretch. Like, if you look, I tweeted out a few days ago, and I bumped it today. So if you go back to my Twitter, you can see what exactly I'm talking about. I think it was players who have a catch percentage over 70% this season, ranked by yards per reception, and he was first. And second was Cooper Kupp, and third was Devontae Adams. So pretty good company to be in. I think like if you even go 4, 5, 6 on that list, it's like DeAndre Hopkins is in there, Tim Patrick, and Tyler Lockett in some order. So that's a talented group. Shows a lot about a receiver. If you're making your catches every time you target, you make the catch at plus 70% of the time, good quality, and you're getting a lot of yards per reception. Like those are 2 good metrics for receivers. And putting those together like that and seeing that Bourne ranks near the top, that's pretty special. That's a pretty special player. Could argue steal of the offseason, one of the steals of the offseason at the very least. He has been everything the Patriots have needed and more. They needed a receiver. We thought Odell maybe have been the answer. The answer's been here. It's been Kendrick Bourne. He's been fantastic. Great game from him. All right, I see more of your comments in there. Land saying, we are so lucky to have Mac, and it's true. I mean, people thought that Mac Jones was going to be the worst quarterback of this group. He was drafted after Justin Fields, after Trey Lance, after Zach Wilson, after Trevor Lawrence, and he's done the best. And going to the Patriots has probably helped, but he makes some throws. Like that throw to Hunter Henry on the corner route, I think it was, and at the third quarter, that throw was perfect. It was excellent. And he made a lot of throws like that today where you just kind of looked at it and said, man, he is an amazing passer in the pocket. People make so much of the athleticism for quarterbacks and this and that, but when you can thread the needle like that, that's all you need to do as the quarterback. Sometimes people make it overcomplicated. They want someone who can run, do this and that, and it's helpful. Don't be wrong. Like you can have a guy that can run. Lamar Jackson, believe me, that can be just as effective. But it's gone are the days of appreciating a quarterback just doing what a quarterback has always done. It used to be more of the pocket passer, and the game has evolved. But there's still a place for that guy. There really still is, and Mac Jones is proving that so far in his rookie season. He's been incredible, and I don't know how far it's going to take the Patriots, but the fact that they won today, I'll be honest. I thought you've won 3 in a row. You're going to be riding high. You're going up against the best team you've played since, I guess you could say, the Chargers, but one of the better teams you played in the last few weeks here. You had Houston, you had the Jets, you had the last week you had the Panthers who weren't that good. One of the better teams. I thought it was going to be a physical team, especially one of the better defenses. You haven't played a defense like this in a while, unless you want to say the Buccaneers, who have been iffy this year. They just lost to Washington of all teams. So I really thought this was going to be a test. Mac stood up to it. Didn't matter. Mac was excellent today. 83% completion. Yeah, I had to correct myself on that. But yeah, Mac Jones, perfect day for him. Didn't ask him to even do much. Like I said, only 23 attempts, only 199 yards, but he was perfect. And he did exactly what you needed him to do. Field general, and I mean, when you're up, once you get up 20 points, 21 points, 3 possessions, 4 possessions, it starts to balloon. It's like you don't really need much else. You really, you don't need to ask him to do a ton in the second half. So he was he did exactly what they needed him to do. So I'm not going to get on him for the short yardage or the short attempts. Like, why overextend him? You got a game on Thursday he's got to get ready for. So by all means, rest him, and hopefully they'll be ready for Thursday. They'll feel very rested because this game was not very competitive at all. Thomas saying defense is really coming together, and that's true. I mean, I don't know how, I don't want to give the defense, passing defense. I still think that it's fair to say that the jury's out on the passing defense because, the Browns receivers aren't exactly a great test. And it's been a few good weeks in a row now, so I'm not going to totally dismiss the praise. They deserve praise. But that Cowboys game is still fresh in your mind. When they go up against real receivers, it doesn't always look great. And I want to give them, I don't want to totally dismiss the fact they deserve credit because they've, it's not like they haven't gone up against some real receivers here recently. Like when they went up against Keenan Allen and Mike Williams with the Chargers. And they held Keenan Allen to 6 receptions for 77 yards. He had a touchdown too. Just, it's a decent game for Keenan Allen, but it's not what he did next week. Next week against the Eagles, he had 12 for 104, So he had 4 for 108 against the Cowboys, 9 for 100 against Washington. So did they shut down Keenan Allen? No. But did they limit him enough that they could still have a good day against the Chargers defensively? Absolutely. So that's all you need from your secondary. I think we've gotten used to elite secondary play over the last several years, 7 years, really. I was going to just say 7 for the Patriots with, Darrelle Revis, Darrelle Revis to Malcolm Butler to Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, and J.C. Jackson's still really good out there. But, the guy opposite him, you're a little bit wary of. But you don't need elite guys back there. If you just have J.C. Jackson making plays consistently, then it's great. And the guys in the middle are filling in the gaps. Adrian Phillips, Kyle Duggar, whoever you want to mention, they've been fantastic too. So, if you have a weakness on the outside, hey, guess what? A lot of teams have a weakness. A lot of good teams, a lot of really, really good teams have weaknesses. So if that's all you need to worry about, you're in good shape. Let's see what else we have in the chat here. Phil saying domination, sensation, on to Atlanta now. And I mentioned before, Atlanta really struggling this season. Atlanta, it has not been fun to be them. They've had a rough go of it, at least this Sunday with their loss to the Cowboys. That was brutal. And you wonder if they'll be a little bit rested because we didn't have to play very hard because we were getting blown out. So will they come out with something to prove? Their playoff hopes are on the line. You worry about that a little, but it's still the Falcons. The Falcons team that we've known for years to choke in big moments. I mean, after that Super Bowl, then they come in here after the year after the Super Bowl, you beat them. So it feels like there's still that mental thing. Matt Ryan is still there. Not too many people from that Super Bowl team are still there, but Matt Ryan still is. So if he had a good game against you, I would be pretty surprised. It feels like you still own a little bit piece of real estate in Matt Ryan's head. It'd be hard to imagine him beating Foxborough right now. With that team wavering, their offense, their best weapon is Cordarrelle Patterson. You're telling Bill Belichick, coach defense is going to get torn up by Cordarrelle Patterson? I don't think so. He knows too much about the guy having had him here. Kyle Pitts could be tough, but again, that's the strength of their defense, their safety play. The strength of their secondary has been their safety play. Duggar and Phillips have been amazing. So can they handle Kyle Pitts? Maybe. I wouldn't rule that out. The guy's still a rookie. So you mentioned Bill Belichick's record against rookie quarterbacks. How about against, rookie tight ends? I'm not, I don't know. Nobody has that stat, but all I'm saying is, you can be a great player as a rookie, but you go up against Bill Belichick and you find out what it's like to have a NFL caliber coach, an NFL great game plan for you. And Kyle Pitts doesn't understand that yet. He doesn't know what it's like to have a mastermind of a coach game plan, a scheme to stop him specifically. So let's see how he handles that. He's the only guy left really for the Falcons in terms of real weapons. Cordarrelle Patterson, I'll give credit for. He's been good this year, but I'm not too worried about him going up against Belichick. I'm not too worried about either of those guys. So I think defensively, they should handle the Falcons too. We'll see. Are they going to hold them to 7? I don't think so. I mean, the Cowboys held them pretty low today, but I think Matt Ryan's still good. That offense has still been effective this year, but I just don't think they're going to score enough to beat the Patriots, especially with that defense. You expect another 3-touchdown game from Mac Jones. I'll say that much. Or a 100-yard day from Andre Stevenson or something, because I don't think Atlanta's stopping anybody anytime soon, defensively at least. Nick saying, wish Stevenson played earlier in the season. We would have a better record. Not totally unfair. They do bring rookies along. They tend, for the most part, to bring rookies along slowly, and that's always been their process. So I'm not going to get on them too much for it. But yeah, would Ramondre Stevenson have fumbled against the Dolphins? Like, it's that simple, really. It's hard for me. I want to argue against it, but it's hard for me to do so when you could just simply argue like one fumble changed their record from what would be 7-3 right now to 6-4. So yeah, it's hard for me to say you're wrong. When you beat the Bucs with him, that's more nuanced. There's a lot more that goes into that, but it's hard for me to argue against the game against the Dolphins, other than to say he also fumbled in that game. So, it's not illogical why he was sat down. He was part of what cost you that game. We all remember the Damian Harris fumble because it came at the end. But if Ramondre Stevenson doesn't fumble, does that change the game too? Probably. So Stevenson, you can say he's been good, and I think that's the thing to focus on. But if he had played earlier in the season, who knows? I mean, I think that it's good generally to bring rookies along. I think I generally agree with that practice. So I don't have a huge problem with Bill Belichick doing it in this case. I mean, you can't argue with the outcomes right now, or the results right now, because it seems like whatever they did with him helped. I mean, to have a game like this today, that is something. And Thomas saying Stevenson was a cannonball. Everybody loves Stevenson today. I mean, people made the comparisons to LeGarrette Blount, and honestly, it's not hard to see them. And he is kind of a player that, running backs can come from anywhere. So is he going to be a star? I don't know. But today was a good start. And I will be interested to see how the coaches approach it, because Damian Harris is the veteran, so to speak, only a few years in the league himself, but he has he's been in the league a little longer. So they're going to defer to him, or are they going to stick with Stevenson? I think sticking with Stevenson is the right call, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if Bill Belichick stuck with Damian Harris because he had, he doesn't want him to lose his job due to injury, or, he's been here longer and he's been, been in the system longer. So, I hope it's Stevenson, but I wouldn't be shocked if it isn't. I really wouldn't. I think that you can only hope that Bill Belichick sees exactly what everybody else sees in Stevenson and continues to go with him. So, and I want to mention maybe before we get out of here, just Jacoby Myers getting in the end zone. How about that? I mean, everything good happened today, right? So finally, you get Jacoby Myers with his first touchdown. I think it was someone said most career receptions at time of the first touchdown. He had 134. The next closest was 80. It's funny because Wes Welker's also on that list in third with 69 receptions. But pretty great that Jacoby finally got in the end zone there. And I think, honestly, it kind of speaks to what he's able to do in the middle of the field, that it took him this long, but he has this many receptions to speak for him, even outside of the fact that he hasn't been able to get it done in the red zone. But they haven't needed him to. That's why you bring in Hunter Henry. And it's funny that he had 2 touchdowns in that first preseason game. If you guys remember that first preseason game he played in against the Lions, 2 touchdown catches, and it's taking him this long to finally break into the end zone in the regular season. But he eventually did it. Colin saying Ramondre Express, compared him to a freight train certainly makes a lot of sense. Nick saying Max stock is, I think he's in rising high, or his Max stock is high right now. 100%. I mean, if you go back and redraft that right now, it's hard to say you pick him number 1 overall. But if the trend continues, if the results bear out over the next 5 years the way they're looking right now, we could very easily be saying Mac Jones should have went first overall in that draft class. Like it's I know right now it seems crazy because of the potential of the other guys in the class, but a few years from now it won't be. If things continue to go this way. Phil saying 49ers regretting drafting Trey Lance. They have to be. And also saying standing ovation for Myers for everything he was able to do. Anyway, the 49ers regretting drafting Trey Lance. They certainly have to be. And there were these reports that Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones, Wouldn't be surprised if we hear more of those, especially if John Lynch is fired after this season as their general manager. But yeah, Mac Jones probably would have been pretty nice in that offense. Would have been a little bit better than Jimmy G. And hey, Jimmy G's had a couple good weeks in a row, so I'm not going to totally dismiss what Garoppolo's doing for that team. But yeah, certainly if they had Mac Jones, maybe things would be going a little better. Vice Man saying Jones, 83% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Stats remind me of his Bama stats. And you can't ask, I mean, to me, the completion percentage is even high, but that is the perfect stat line for a quarterback. That is the gold standard. 3 touchdowns, no picks, high completion percentage. I would even say 70, but 83%. That's even better. That's exceeding expectations. But that is an A day from a quarterback. 70%, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The 83%, that's just gravy at that point. He was money. He was money. And again, this was against a team that came into today as a top 10 passing defense. They were, I think, 9th in yards per game allowed, passing yards per game allowed. So they were a tough matchup, and Mac Jones did his thing regardless, and the Patriots did their thing regardless. This is a game that people should look at and say, oh, they did that to Cleveland? Because Cleveland's that's not a joke of a team. That's not like they used to be. Okay, this isn't the Jets. This isn't the Texans. This isn't the Jaguars. Okay, this is a real NFL club. This isn't the Lions, who were even in a close battle with the Steelers today. But this is serious now. This is a playoff contender, and the Patriots made them look like a joke. So what does that tell you about who the Patriots are? Like people are going to stop looking at this team and saying, is this a playoff team? How good are they? How far they can go? No, after today, it's okay. They're a playoff team. Should we be talking about the Patriots as a Super Bowl contender? That's the question that people are going to be asking themselves after this one. That is the question the Patriots have forced people to think about after a performance like this. This was something. This was a turning point. This was people talk about the biggest win since Tom Brady left, the biggest, whatever, this or that. This is where things really started to feel like, oh no, they're back on track. They're the Patriots that we know again. And it's starting to feel like that in Foxborough. 4 in a row. 4 wins in a row. I thought that was too much to ask. 4 in a row from a rookie quarterback from this team. That's a lot. That the elite teams go on 4-game winning streaks. The elite teams, well, the Patriots just might be one of those elite teams. All right, I think that's going to do it for today's stream, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Be sure to check out the Celtics post-game streams, all the Celtics streams that are coming on the channel. My NFL picks, if you want to check them out, I still have them for the Monday game. I know that the 4 o'clock games have already started, but I still have them for the Sunday night game, the Monday night game. I think I did pretty good in the first window, at least over 500, so we'll double check on that. But it worked out pretty well. Posted that earlier, so we'll see if my final record is. Last week it was 5-6, so just under 500. Just missed on that Steelers game after they blew that lead. But hopefully a bounce back this week, get back over 500, and get those picks to you guys. Hopefully I do a good enough job. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. We are going to end it here. Tune in next week for the